Jake Bruton with Arrow Building, and today we're in Virginia Beach. Jackson, thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
We're at Jackson Andrews Building and Design, and we spent the morning walking through how we both operate our companies, how our procedures work, and I wanted to show you a couple things. The first is some of the stuff in their office, and then we'll go into the warehouse and I'll show you a couple of really cool things. I thought that this was fantastic. This is everything that I like in their office is about communication and your ability to talk with your clients. So
Absolutely.
Walk me through just this one simple column of stuff that builders don't do.
Yeah, so this one simple column, this board is changing for us, I mean, a couple times a week, in reality. And we do a lot of digital communication and sheets that go out to our clients and to our trades and to our team. But this is one thing that sometimes we just got to focus on jobs that are either in production or about to go into production. And we're constantly monitoring essentially who's running those jobs. How are we manning them? Who's mounting?
Who's running that job?
Yep.
What job it is?
Correct.
And then your timetable for that project.
Yep. And so, for example, like some of these jobs right now, these have even changed as our clients' schedules sometimes change. You know, some have a dead set date. I've got to start and got to end by for this to work. Other ones are kind of just fluid. They're like, we have a son going back to college, we think on the 20th, so let's not start before that. And then they say, you know what, that's a horrible time, actually, let's go ahead and start sooner. So as of right now, we're kind of, pretty fluid as we project for 2020. A lot of these things are locked in. A lot of other ones are, clients are flexible, and we kind of say, we can get it done in this time frame if we start this date. If not, you might want to wait till the summer. So like this one right here is probably going to get pushed off to the summer because they have a really small window of time frame they want to get completed in, which if we started now, it's not going to work.
And so the idea here being, you're making weekly or sometimes more than once a week, maybe even, assessments as to what's going on with the schedule, and you can quickly erase it and reassess, and then that may affect things that are further down too. 100%.
Yeah, so we're always trying to communicate effectively and clearly with our clients, and especially if someone's signing a contract, a lot of those clients want to know how long you're going to be on my house, how long you're going to be on our property, when are you going to start, when are you going to be done, how can our family kind of organize around that. So we've got to be really diligent with this, and as we are committing, so some of these jobs are contracted, some of these are prospective jobs. We're debating and kind of talking even with clients right now, can we guarantee that we'll be here on this date? And a lot of that will dictate what the scope of work does. Of course, there's always changes, unforeseen conditions that can come up on a job that impact the schedule, so we're always having to be really careful on how we allot time for a project, especially when we've given someone a firm start and completion date on a job. Takes a lot of practice, a lot of just kind of, I think, always trying not to have our whole team completely booked out solid. Sometimes we have to be fluid. So if something does unforeseen happen, or sometimes it's just this is the right opportunity to take care of something on a job that comes up, rather than finishing a job and coming back and doing it later, we've got to have someone that we can kind of slide back in and kind of oversee that if we really got to start something else on a date.
I think that this is something that some builders do. This is something that I try to do in our office as well. But the interesting thing is, if you can see a wider shot of this room, this is in their conference room where their clients meet. This is when I walk in as a client, I can go, okay, well, they're still looking at December for it, or they're still looking at starting in April. And that is a really simple way that you're communicating with your client without actually having to talk to them each time when they come in. I'm sure you address this board.
Yeah. So I mean, a lot of times this, like I said, this board, there's a lot more than just this angle that you've already seen. What goes on this side, but this is constantly changing. It could change. But the great thing is we're really transparent. This would be no clients coming into here saying, oh, our job's gotten pushed back, kind of a thing. So all this is really for us to kind of see. But it's great that this really reflects what we're communicating with our clients, via email or to digital, format. So when they come in here, they understand that, gosh, there are 8 or 9 jobs that currently they're kind of scheduling and that we're working around, and it all kind of makes sense. So I mean, we don't normally have to erase things. I'm not kind of concerned about hiding something from a client, but there's any of us know in this industry, there's just so many moving parts, and weather and unforeseen circumstances will change things all the time.
So if we talk about everything up here being about client communication, there's samples on the floor, there's things leaning up against the walls where I can tell you've had client meetings where you've looked at flooring and things like that. I think that the interesting thing is that it doesn't just stop in this section of the office, it actually continues into the warehouse.
Yeah, this is kind of our discussion area, and then where we start kind of implementing ideas and trying to see what things really look like, we kind of do in our warehouse.
All right, let's walk back there and look at that.
Sure.
to continue the conversation about client communication, and we finished inside talking about, oh, there's samples, there's things leaning up against the walls that we can show people. Explain to me what we're looking at here inside your warehouse.
Yeah, so we've really gotten into doing mock-ups and samples and real-life examples of what a client's going to have when they move into their home. It's hard to, we can visualize this stuff all day long because we do it every day, of what, a 7 and a quarter, reveal is going to look like on a siding, or this type of window or this type of trim will look like. But for a client that's not used to doing this every day, sometimes they got to see it, be able to touch it, and really kind of to take in what that scale is going to look like. So this is for, example of something we've done for a client that this is the actual window they're going to be using on their house. They are, we started off with looking at using this is a hardy siding and a particular 7 and a quarter gap reveal, and this was the best way for them to see it. And we can talk about it all day long, but for them to actually see it had the biggest impact. And from here, we're able to talk about other options they can consider. So, for example, we're going to look at a different, reveal width for them to take into consideration.
So you were telling me, Jackson was telling me earlier that they're gonna cut the siding off at the halfway point and go to a different product, different size, everything. It's going to be completely different, and they're going to side the other half of this window. And that's like, for me and my clients, this is an excellent opportunity for me to be able to say, this is what it's actually going to look like, and not have a conflict once we start building and start putting a product that we special ordered on the wall. That then they're not happy with.
And stuck with, or you have a whole truckload of it out on the job site, and this is for the first time you're really seeing what you're going to get. We utilize digital layouts a lot too, which is helpful, but again, sometimes just seeing it and being able to stand at a 10-foot wall and understand what that scale is going to look like is really helpful. So this is kind of something we used for a project a little while ago, this frame, and now we're able just to essentially take siding off, take windows out, put different windows in, and just kind of use it for every client. And we'll start flipping it around as we get to the interiors. It can do the interiors. We have jobs that maybe are using fry reglet, trim profiles, or they're doing casings, and it's really easy. It sounds like a lot in the beginning. It's like, is this really worth it? And we have learned that it is absolutely worth the time that gets involved to deal with this now. So when we're actually swinging hammers and in production, we know what we're going to do. We don't have to stop and pause, and or that for us, the biggest fear of a client walking into a job site anytime and just that it's not what I expected. That's my biggest nightmare.
That's the worst thing as a builder to have to deal with. That's not what I thought I was paying for. And so now you have this, it's staying in your shop, and it's going to be a circulation for products that, if it's not something that you can't just go, okay, drive by this address, this is the same sort of detail, you're able to do that. And like you said, there's an interior side to this too that doesn't have any finishes on it now, but as you get to things that are tricky, that you can't show, that you don't have built in the office, you're able to keep showing it to people.
That way too.
So it's a touch and feel thing. So I think that there's one more place that I want to take you guys for this specific idea of communication. And we were going to run over to a job site and look at how they're taking this even one step further, because there's details that aren't just for the client. There's details that are for the people executing the details as well.
It's big.
So, okay, we're going to break one more time. Okay, so now that we're at the job site, we can continue that conversation of what you guys are doing to make it easier to communicate with clients. So what is this little structure behind us here, Jackson?
So this is actually, start off with, I would say this is our mock-up. That's really what started it out, was we needed a place we can actually do install for our trades to kind of see hands-on how we're going to be applying certain products and how they're going to coordinate with each other and all tie together. More importantly, it's also for our trades to see it in more of a real scale. Back in the warehouse, we kind of saw large scales, but this particular project is a little bit bigger. And I think seeing different materials and things, how they're all going to come together, this is really helpful for us. The other great thing about it is, given the duration of this particular project, this is about closer to a 3-year build. We always want to have some place on site for our project manager to kind of have a place to review plans. If the weather's not great, so we kind of have some sort of makeshift office. So we just thought, why not kind of just knock 2 birds out with 1 stone? We can have an office. We can put it in a location that it doesn't have to move, but it becomes a great place for us to do our mock-ups. Normally we're doing these on the structure as it's being built, where we're doing skirts and siding and window trims and all that. This allows us to do it way earlier on in the design process. We can put this structure here and actually start looking at different materials before we even start construction on the house. So it gives our client and our design team a lot more time to kind of really feel through the process.
And so instead of the job trailer, we literally can show the guys on site exactly how things are going to look.
Yeah.
And if we don't like something, we can rip it back off, and it's not on the house where we have to repair something on the house. Here, if you rip something off and it leaves a hole, you can just put a piece of felt paper over it or something, be done with it, because you're not expecting this thing to last longer than the course of construction.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
And that's, as you know, I mean, that's what happens on a job site. We're constantly, rarely do you get everything perfect the first time around. Again, things look great on paper, but when you actually start getting with your install team, you're kind of working together. You have your mason and your siding guys out here, your framers, everyone kind of putting their 2 cents on how this is all going to tie together for the structure and the envelope to work. Things have to get changed. Paper is easy to design on, but to actually make it all come together is a whole another task that we have to deal with in the field. This lets us do this kind of, again, before we even start framing the structure, before we do the foundation, we can start thinking about what is this going to impact our foundation and where we need to put sills or blocks, things like that, so we can start, we can do it right the first time.
Okay. And so if we start at the bottom and work our way up here, we're looking at stone samples.
Yeah.
And not only are we looking at stone samples, but we're also even looking at a mortar sample.
Yeah.
So we have different mortar on one end than the other end, different application, how the joints are raked or not raked.
Yep.
And then if we move up, we have what you think is going to be the cladding and the rain screen assembly. So it's not just this is what the siding looks like, it's this is how the siding is going to install.
Yep,
right?
absolutely. Yeah. Okay. And so again, it all goes together. There are things that we even find out, as we're working with the architect and designer through this, and of course the client, of, hey, we love this stone. Yeah, we realize now let's talk about joint. What type of mortar joint do we want to have on there? Then we're looking at sills. Then we're looking at the cladding, and then because we fall in love with the size of the cladding and the projection or the way this particular cladding has to be installed with the rain screen, then it opens up a whole nother question that could have been not really as maybe thoroughly gone through in the beginning of, where does the window install? What's the projection of the window? Do we want it flush with the cladding now that we've got this rain screen on there? Do we want it set back? So then it's, well, if we make it proud or flush, how are we trimming out this window now? So those are all things that we're able to do. This was over a year ago that we were kind of going through this before we really broke ground. So this was all stuff that we're able to kind of think through together, and that's what we want. We want that togetherness through a project. You want your architect, your designer, your homeowner, and then of course us on the building side. But for us, there's a whole group of guys coming with us that are our trades.
Everyone
that's out here. And so what's great is that when we do this, it makes life on the actual project go a lot smoother, and it's great because our trades also know what we're doing when it's time to do it. We're not killing time in the beginning of scratching our heads or wondering, well, this is going to be a problem, and we've already thought through it. Now our guys can really execute it in the field and they're ready to go.
Yeah, and I think that your project manager Rick was telling me that these aren't even the windows that started in it. You swap to a different window.
Yep.
There's you can't see it from down here. We'll put the ladder up and get some B-roll.
Yeah.
There's actually the roof and gutter assembly. Everything's thought out. The whole house is represented here, or the majority of the house is represented.
Yeah. So we did the same roof pitch we're doing. We've got the roofing material. We had a couple different metals we were looking at one point. The hidden gutter detail that we're working through. And it's also just, again, it's a structure here on site that we get to work through, and that's the biggest thing, because it's evolving for us. We decide a lot of elements don't get figured out right away. We've already figured out the roof lines, we've figured out our fascia and everything, and then the idea of, what about gutters? I don't want to have these gutters that I can see. Well, let's go back and look at that. Well, we can now mock it up here and go back with design and essentially adjust plans as we need to, because you can't, no one's going to figure it out all in the first go on the design side, but it gives us a chance. Even Rick, which is phenomenal. I mean, he spends so much time running the job, but this has been like his baby, of course, out here, for a long time, and he'll be out here looking at it. I'll pull up and he's literally just kind of staring at it, scratching his head. And this soffit detail was one of his ideas that he came up with, of hey, how can we maximize this soffit and really have it correspond with the design of the house, and then talking with the design team about that, and they've come up with an awesome solution. And the biggest thing is we can come up with ways things look, and architects do a phenomenal job, and designers, of these ideas of how we do it, how it's going to look. But then how do you actually install it? It's a whole nother beast that we have to sometimes deal with, and that's where having someone like Rick out here who really is thinking through how this stuff can go together, as well as pull our trades in as needed, and we can then actually try.
And has the opportunity.
Yep.
Okay, so that's communication in a nutshell. They have the samples in the office. They have the whiteboard in the office. They have the warehouse mock-up that they're able to show people, and then they're another three-dimensional layer here where the clients, every time they pull up, can see what they're paying for and why it's going to be so awesome, and that, I think that's awesome. So thank you for watching the Build Show today. I'm Jake Bruton, Jake.Bruton on Instagram. Jackson is Jackson Andrews Building and Design.
Yes.
On Instagram.
Jackson Andrews Building and Instagram. Yep.
Okay, thanks for watching. Until next time. Thanks, man.
See you, man.